is already set aside for. There's
Right.
very rarely am I randomly spending money. Very
Else we could be in the furniture store. We could be in the electronics store. We could be anywhere, the shoe store.
rarely.
That question is very relevant to being responsible with your money. Do I really
We're
need
talking about chapter 2. Do I really need this? Which I think is a really invaluable question that everybody should be asking themselves when they go to buy something. I mean, do I always do it? No, I don't. But a lot of times, more times than not, I do. I do. Because I feel like, if you get into that habit of spending, you'll just keep spending and spending and spending. And for some people, it really is a vice. It's like an addiction. They gotta
it?
spend that money. So, and they get sometimes the most useless things. Think about like people that hoard, but even people that are not to that extreme that still spend their money on things that they really don't need. And I'm looking here, like I got a whole house, a 4-bedroom house. And most of the time, I'm the only person that lives here.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
every room has something in it,
That you don't sit in.
So then I'm still asking myself, do I really need this? But then I look at, the cost of houses here in Northern Virginia, and it's like, well, I might as well stay here because I'm paying less than what some people pay in rent. So for me in that situation, it works out. Yes, okay. At this point, I do need this,
Mhm.
but for most things, like no, I really don't. I don't need a
Right.
TV in every room.
Hmm.
I do. I don't. It's not a need. It's not a need.
Right,
It's
right.
really not.
You
But
know, this chapter, day two, as I call it,
mhm,
the of all the words and sentences and phrases that you have in here, the second section says it's called going forward,
mhm,
and it says ask yourself, do I really need this?
mhm,
And to your point, I'm wondering if people, whether you're in a grocery store, and because we work out, we stay in shape, and what's the rule? You're not supposed to go down every aisle in a grocery store, right?
mhm,
But as we're pushing our cart through the store, I don't think many of us really ask that question before we see that
mhm,
bag of Doritos or
mhm,
something else. We'd be in the furniture store, we could be in the electronics store, we could be anywhere, the shoe store.
mhm,
That question is very relevant to being responsible with your money. Do I
mhm,
really need it? And
mhm.
I think it's more psychological than anything else because you just mentioned, okay, I got this big house, 4 bedrooms. Well, at the time in which you got it, did you ask yourself if you needed it?
I did, but then I was thinking about,
Yeah.
okay, I would like my sister to come and, her kids to come. So it fit what the need was.
Hmm. Right.
And I'm like, well, it's a house, it's an investment. They're going to be paying rent. So,
Hmm.
it's an investment. It really
Right.
worked out at that
Right.
time.
And I guess so to piggyback off of that, when you made that move, you
Mhm.
were looking long term.
I really
But
was.
a lot of times when we look at this question, do we need it? We're
Hmm.
thinking only in the moment, short term.
Hmm.
So it has to be placed in the proper context,
Proper
right?
context, right?
Do I need that car? Do I need
Hmm.
the Rover? Or do I need the Ford Escape? Right? Because the end game is what? I'm just trying to get from A to B.
Maybe.
Nobody really cares about how you look getting there. But in the moment in which we want to make that purchase, we're
Hmm.
not thinking long term, right? We're
Yeah.
not thinking, okay, you know what? I get this house with 4 bedrooms. Well, you know what? My kids are going to get big one day. They're not going to live here. What am I going to do with an
Hmm.
8,000 square foot house with 5 bedrooms, 3.5 baths? Not talking about my house, of course, but but 3 acres. Who's going to cut the grass? Who's going to take care of all these rooms? When in the moment it seemed like a good idea, right? That's so cliche to say, right? In the moment, it seemed like a good idea, but we're not really stopping for a moment to pivot to say, hold on here, before I sign the papers or cut the check, do I really need this? Because
Right.
we're not thinking long term. We're only thinking in the
Hmm.
immediate.
Right. And it's good that you say that because I feel like us, speaking of us too, like we've grown to that point where, you
Oh,
do kind of think about the future, when you're making decisions. But I think with this, I'm thinking about even the younger people that really don't think about it. You know what I'm saying? Even with, like I said, with us, we know there's a limit, to what you're going to spend because you got to do this with your money. You got to have your emergency fund. Like you said, you got a college tuition bill today,
yeah,
so
yeah.
those things are going to come up, right?
Mhm.
But I'm talking about like I know people that really give no thought, no regard to
Mm,
tomorrow. It's really
mm,
all about today,
right, right.
you
And
know? So,
I think there needs to be a certain level or degree of self-discipline. Do
mm-hmm,
you have that in your teens and in your 20s?
mm-hmm,
When do you have that self-discipline? Does it come with more responsibility that the light bulb comes on that I need to ask that question?
mm-hmm,
Is there I don't know, some catastrophic event that
mm-hmm.
has to happen to make you ask that question? Do you
Right,
have to lose something?
right.
Right? That's the thing.
Mhm.
It's good to learn it young, but here's the other thing, it's an environmental thing too, right? Like, I don't want to say we grew up rich. We didn't have a lot.
Mhm.
We wanted a lot of stuff. We didn't need it, but we didn't have
Right,
the means to get it. So
right.
I always think back to, when we was young, 18, 20, whatever, when we were young and we didn't have a lot,
Mhm.
would I have exercised this level of discipline to ask that
Mhm.
question based on
Mhm.
how I was living? Nah. Right? I need all of it, right?
I don't
But
know about you though. I remember that. That used to be your
you remember
motto.
the budget
I'm on a
87?
budget.
I'm on a budget of 87. But you know why I was on a budget? Because my dumb was buying other stuff that I shouldn't have been buying, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like, yeah, I'm on a budget, but am I on a budget for the right reasons? Like,
Right,
I'm budgeting to do what?
right.
Go buy some Jordans,
Mhm.
right? I didn't need Jordans. I didn't need that stuff. I needed gas in my car. But hey, if I didn't have a full tank, I mean, as long as I was getting from A to B, 50 cent a tank was good, right?
Mhm.
That shows how we are with gas under $1, right? But I didn't, I didn't have the discipline at that age to stop and ask that question before I made a crazy expenditure. And it's almost like a mental thing where you just want to be satisfied right there in the moment.
Mhm.
And I think as you get older, like you said, you become a little bit more, you can see beyond your
Mhm.
circumstance now, understand how that expense could really affect you long term.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I really think I was gonna say it goes without saying, but it's really something that needs to be said at
Yes.
a young age, at an older age, at whatever point. I feel like it's something like it's ongoing. It's just like, like we both of us been watching our weight, but
Yeah.
all the time with this food, do I
Yeah.
need this? Do I need
Right.
this? Or
Right.
how is this going to impact me? How many more miles do I have to walk? Or, am I
Mm,
exceeding my calories for today? So
mm,
it's that discipline and that restraint. It's got to cover your life. It's got
mm,
to cover your life. It's like there's
mm.
no two ways about it. No way around it. And I feel like once you get the discipline in place, though, it becomes easier for you. It does become easier for you to ask yourself those questions in the
Yeah.
moment. Like
Let me ask you this.
okay, go ahead.
Have you ever tried in our age now, our advanced age and
Mhm.
in all of our wisdom, have you tried to employ this methodology with young kids? I have a funny
Um,
story about it. That's why I'm asking.
no, I don't. No, I
Right,
mean, no, I haven't. I mean,
right,
when my nieces did live here, I put together this whole presentation for them one time and showing them about like a bucket with holes in the bucket and the water going into the bucket and the holes in the bucket, the water just going on. I'm like, that's your money. If you're not
right, right.
budgeting, you're taking care of it and being responsible with it. That's really what you're doing with it, and then the
Right,
other bucket over here is filling up. So I
right.
was, relating that to and talking about, saving, investing, and compound interest and all. I had a whole presentation for them. So,
Mhm.
and they just threw that away. They just,
Well,
it's whatever.
so I preach this to my son a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
He he don't hold money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think he has holes in his hands, not his pockets, his hands. When the money, he gets his little check, it's gone in about 10 days, right? And he's mad if he don't blow it in 10 days, right? So so I'm like, hey man, listen, okay. And I talk about the need versus want concept. He looks me dead in my face. And when they give you the look, they're not paying attention. When they look you in the eye, they ain't listening, right? But the one question he always asks me is, well, why can't I get it right now?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter me explaining it. He can't get past the why can't I have it right now? And if I say, well, dude, it's not going nowhere, you can get it anytime you want.
Mm-hmm.
That sense of urgency he has to have it right now. There's no sense of delayed gratification, right? And I told him that, sometimes the delayed gratification goes more towards you feeling like you earned it. You saved, you invested. It's going to feel even better when you get it because you're going to say, you know what, I earned it. It's not going anywhere.
Right.
You have other priorities like gas in your car, right? But I'm always interested in hearing when people say they talk to their kids about saving money, investing, and all that other stuff. How do you employ a methodology to convince them to see things from your perspective while at the same time trying to meet them halfway? That's a challenge for young folks.
Yeah, and then it's easier to say, what to do than to actually carry it out and do it. But something I always remember, I was reading Ben Carson's book, Gifted Hands. This was way before he was on that.
It's up there on the shelf. Yeah, before he went crazy, but go ahead. Yeah.
Long time before that.
Yeah.
His mother, I think it was his mother that basically gave him, because him and his brother was always asking for stuff. She's a single parent working, doing the best she could to make ends meet. And they wanted stuff. And so basically, instead of her saying no, she put them in charge of the money. And, you got to pay these bills. And, so whatever's left, then you decide what happens with that. And for them, they got the lesson through that. But I'm like, wow. I mean, that always sticks in my mind. It always sticks in my mind. Like, would I have gotten it if somebody had entrusted me with the money?
and I also think they grew up really poor, so their circumstances were different.
Right.
Well, when you have privileged kids like these little critters we deal with, there's none of that, right? It's like, well, it's always going to be there. If I can't get it, they always be there because I know you guys got me and I'm living nice. But when you know that this is it, like this $100,
right?
You take that to the grocery store, that's it for 3 weeks or however many long. You guys are big, it's probably gonna go in a week.
Right.
So that need versus want thing is hard to resonate with the young folks. Now, what happens is when they get to college or somewhere when they're on their own, that's when it kicks in. And that's when you get the phone call. Okay, listen, we need to sit down and let's go through, the plus and minus of budgeting, what you say last week about paying your bills on a set day and that kind of stuff. But it doesn't resonate really until they get on their own and they suffer, unfortunately, a little bit before it really resonates.
Right. I got a question for you, though. What do you say to that adult that still doesn't get it?